Hi, this is Brycox, BryCoxWORKSHOPS.com. Today's a big day. There's a new version of Adobe Lightroom. I have a whole nother video explaining the difference between this new version, which is now called Adobe Lightroom CC, and the original version, which is now called Adobe Lightroom Classic CC. Both are going to be around. They both come with your subscription to Creative Cloud, which means you now have Photoshop, Lightroom CC, and Lightroom Classic CC. But there's some differences in this new Adobe Lightroom that I want to show you so that when you get it, you can really hit the ground running. This is a pre-release version. There's going to be some other things that look a little bit different when it finally releases, but I just want to show you how to use it so that you are ahead of the curve. So the big thing is that this version is very simplified, at least in the interface. It's very powerful in the back end, but the whole idea is that it is a lot easier to use, simpler to use, a lot less confusing. The way Adobe described it to me is it's everything you need and nothing that you don't. So notice we no longer have along the top here the modules, right? With like library, develop, book, web, all those kind of stuff across the top. We don't have that anymore. Notice too that all the sliders, the develop stuff, it's just all right here on the side and it's very simplified. Over here on the left, we've got basically two icons. The first one is Add Photos, and the second one is My Photos. So if we have a new photo shoot, we add. We want to review past photo shoots, we go to My Photos. We've got this, along the bottom, this film strip. We can turn it on and off here, right there. We've also got a couple views. We still have our grid mode, but we now have our original grid mode, which is now called Square Grid. And we've got photo grid mode, which notice how it just makes everything fit. We got vertical, we got horizontal, everything's just kind of fit in there really tight together. So we got basically taking up all of the gray space that's taken up this way. So if you want to look this way, you can. If you want to view this way, you can, or in full view like this, you can. And we've also got a couple ways of making this fit or fill. Right now I'm on fill, which means it's cropping it a little bit, but it's making it take up as much space as it can on my screen. I can also go fit, and now it's the entire image that's not cropped now by my view. We've got one-to-one. We can also just click to get that nice one-to-one, or we can click one-to-one here. And one-to-one is basically 1 pixel per 1 dot on your screen. So pixel per pixel, one-to-one. And then over here we can actually preview our original, and of course across the bottom we have flags and stars to sort and things like that. Up here we have our sort, and we can say only show us things that are certain stars or certain flags or keywords or from certain cameras or locations if your camera is capturing GPS metadata. And if you're using your iPhone, of course that works obviously. One of the cool things about using this new version of Adobe Lightroom is that it syncs across all of your devices. So if I want to take pictures with my iPhone, they'll just come right in to this. And if I take pictures with my professional studio camera and load them into my desktop, they show up on my iPhone. I'll show you that in a minute under my photos, but I want to show you some of the new changes to the develop system, and we'll get also into how everything connects over the cloud. So the next thing is these sliders. Notice that everything is being rearranged and simplified. So in previous version of Lightroom, which is now called Lightroom Classic, right, we had white balance first, and then we had some of these exposure controls, and then we had not tint, but vibrance and saturation. Now all of those are combined. So we've got color, everything that has to do with color is combined, everything that has to do with light is combined. And notice if I hover any of these words, it gives me a little animated GIF that explains what each little slider does. That one does whites, this one does contrast, and you notice it changes the contrast. This one does exposure, this does blacks. So it's the whole idea here is to be simple. There's a whole segment of photographers that just find the whole techie aspect of photography complicated. And this is to really simplify all of that and do a lot of the back end work for you as opposed to making you make all sorts of decisions. Some of the other categories here, effects. So things like clarity, dehaze, and vignetting is now under effects. Detail are things like sharpening, noise reduction, color noise, and grain. And look how simple all of the sliders are. And then optics would be things like lens correction, and then geometry is making things upright. You use that a lot for buildings, but look at how simple that is right? So the whole idea is to make it as absolutely simple as possible, particularly for newer photographers or for maybe just photographers that just don't want to deal with a lot of what they find complicated about photography and maybe Lightroom Classic. So they're both, neither one's going away. We still have Lightroom Classic. If you like all the old sliders, if you like all the other controls that you have, you still got them, and there's still improvements coming. In fact, in my other video that accompanies this, I have a whole video that explains the difference between these two, and I also go over some of the new updates in Adobe Lightroom Classic. So let me continue through these adjustments. So we've got our crop. Look at how simple the cropping is, super simplified. This is everything to do with rotating, turning, flipping. If I step outside of my bounds, I have rotating, but I can also rotate this way. And if at any time I want to reset any slider, notice how the straighten becomes reset straighten, right? And I can also right-click reset crop that way. We've got our healing brush. This is great for getting rid of things like spots in the sky, dust spots, things like that. But we can also use it for anything that we just want to get rid of as well, that we just find annoying. We can actually use this as a brush. So let's say, like I know on one of these pictures here, I've got a picture of this gal. There we go. And let's zoom in. Let's get rid of this for 1 second and just zoom in. I got this button, and let's say for whatever reason, we've decided that button is just annoying and distracting and artistically is not needed. I can use my bracket keys, same as before, a lot of the same shortcuts, right? And I can just click on that, paint that away, let up, and you can see it gives me a spot, but it's using the thread, and I want to use the side, and that's it. And zoom away. Now I've gotten rid of that spot. I can use it for all sorts of things. So we've got the healing brush. We've got healing brush. We got our normal brush, and this is great for painting in details or various things. In case, let's say I want to, let's get a bigger brush here. I'm on exposure. I want to just darken these edges like that, right? I can adjust just exposure. If I hit reset, all my little sliders reset. This is very handy. I use this sometimes in commercial work where I want to add clarity to certain areas, but say like not her face. I don't want to make her face super clarity. It'll make her look older, but I can do it to this background and not affect the middle. If I want to get rid of maybe over top of her outfit, I can hold Option. Notice the plus turns to a minus, but I can also switch brushes up there. Notice how it switches for me. And I can then just paint over top of that. So anyway, the brush tool, the gradient, these are linear gradients. And notice that I've already, in a past version of Lightroom, drew in some gradients. And when I saved those, you typically don't save images in Lightroom, what we now call Lightroom Classic, but I do a shortcut which I teach in my tutorial videos, which is Command-All, Command-A for select all, Command-S for sync, or not sync, but save all of the changes to my metadata of my DNG file, and then Command-D for deselect. So now when I've imported these images that I originally worked on in my first version of Lightroom, and now I put them in this new version, all of these changes that I did with my sliders just popped in, and they're all there, and I can add more, whatever. And of course we have all of these controls from linear gradients as well as radial gradients. These are super handy, especially if I want to do like a vignette of a particular shape. I can go like this. I can get outside, spin it. Maybe I don't want it to be a vignette. I can click exposure to reset, and maybe I want to just add haze, or I want to dehaze. That's actually pretty handy in some of these more foggy pictures, or I just want to add more clarity or less clarity. Again, all of our controls, but just a lot more simplified. And then of course these three dots, this is like what we'd call sync in the past, but now it's copy settings and paste settings. And we can also use the shortcut Command-C or Command-V. Of course, we can also revert to our original. This is kind of like stepping back through our history steps, or Command-E will just take this right into Photoshop where we can continue our retouching. All right, so those are the tools on the far right. Of course, down here we have keyword tagging and just our metadata info if we want to view something. That's all of our metadata. Here's keywords. We can add keywords. So we can search for that later. And all of our shortcuts still work. So if I want to jump to one of these grid modes, G for grid works. If I want to just hit spacebar to get back out, And the neat thing is too, is all of these sliders, the way this is organized with light, color, effects, the way it's all grouped together, this is all going to be exactly the same across mobile devices. So it's going to look the same, obviously, on the desktop, my laptop, and my desktop version, because they both use the same desktop application. But my iPad, my iPhone, these all have now the same layout, the same, so that I'm not learning multiple apps if I want to jump to my iPad and work on some or pull things in. So now, speaking of iPad and iPhone, let's jump to cloud connectivity and my photos. And we'll even add some photos in here and coming up in a minute. So clicking on my photos, you can see I've already got some albums that I've made for demo purposes. And albums are kind of a new title. It's basically what we'd call collections. If you remember collections in Lightroom Classic. Right? Again, trying to simplify things. Collections can be confusing to people. Albums make sense. We all know what an album is. It's a collection of photos. And we can view those either in list form, in grid form. It gives you a little preview. I've got just like iPhone pics. So here's something cool. I don't know if you know, you were able to do this before, but everything works a little better now. You can use your iPhone to take raw images that are then imported automatically into Lightroom. So I don't use my phone for everything this way, but maybe some more important things, or where maybe I want to, adjust contrast or exposure a little bit better. Like here I am, this is, let's jump to that image. This is me at a friend's concert. And let's look at my exposure and what I've done is I've pulled down my highlights and pulled up my shadows, right? Because the iPhone tends to be a little bit snappy, and instead I want a lot more shadow detail and I want highlight detail. But you can't do that normally with just shooting a JPEG with your phone. So if it's something where I know I need a little more dynamic range, I'm going to open up Lightroom Mobile, and then in Lightroom Mobile on my phone, it's going to capture in DNG and it's automatically going to sync. So again, everything's going to sync automatically, which means anything I shoot on my phone with Lightroom Mobile is going to sync. Anything I shoot with my studio camera and load into Lightroom here will then sync across devices. So the whole idea here, and this is one of the big selling points for the new Lightroom, is that people in the past, they lose files. They don't know where they are. All right, so we've got all these photos. And let's say I've got this cute little picture here of my cousin's little baby, and she's in white because this was after church when they blessed her at church. And I've got this cute little picture, right? Why am I shooting this with my iPhone? It's the only camera I had with me at the time. I didn't have another camera, but they're like, hey, can you take a picture of this? So rather than use someone else's iPhone, I said, I'm going to use Lightroom so that I get these in full RAW so that I can then go into my sliders and notice how I can, right? That's how a camera would normally capture it. But I can say, I want more highlight detail and I want more shadow detail and I don't want it to look muddy. So I'm able to do that right here in my desktop application of Lightroom because I use Lightroom Mobile to take the picture. Therefore, it's in DNG. It just automatically syncs. I don't have to know where the file is. I don't have to move things over. Anything I import into Lightroom, say on my laptop, let's say I shoot a wedding, and I just pop them in. I say I've got this model shoot here, and I'm on, or this is maybe even a better example. I got this family here on location, and we get this really fun shoot, and we love it, and I just want to download them right there in the car. The nice thing is now because they're in Lightroom, it automatically sends everything up to the cloud and then disseminates it down to my various devices. So now these images will then show up on my desktop, they'll show up on my iPad, they'll show up on my phone, and I can continue sorting them, culling them. I can go in here and say, you know what this image needs here. I was working fast because this cute little boy here, this is my sister's family and my little nephews. Right there, the little boys were having a hard day. So this is me working fast and not worrying too much about that light on the side. So I get this, and maybe I want to add a radial vignette, and I come in here like this. Oops, looks like I've got it on clarity. So let's jump down, click clarity, and instead go exposure, and that's too much. And I just want to give it a nice vignette, jump back, let's pump those shadows ever so slightly, give me a little more detail in her dress, and then we can zoom in 1:1. And let's just check. Oh, so cute. Such a cute little kid. And let's check this little guy. He's pretty good. Anyway, we could check all of them, but we say we like this as our favorite. Now, if I were to just close this, I could then open this up on my desktop once I get home and give it just a minute for everything to sync when I bring my laptop into my house and get internet. And these will all just pop up onto my desktop, and I've already got this image adjusted. It already works. That's the whole one of the selling points, is that you don't have to know your file names. You don't have to know where they are. If anything, you just simply import them, and it just handles everything else. So let's import a shoot. And so we've got these two icons here, right? My photos for adding albums and things, or searching by things. And we've got add. So let's add a photo shoot. And we've downloaded, let's say, these NEFs. These are my Nikon RAW files. We put them on my desktop, and I hit review for import. And notice now it says, hey, there's 47 pictures from this photo shoot. It has loaded them all. It's all ready. It's waiting for me to do a couple things. One, here's where they're coming from. This folder called Andre in Salt Lake. And then ask me, what album do I want to add them to? And I want to make a new album. So we're going to call this Andrea Create. So that this whole new photo shoot goes into that album. Now, obviously, these are just names I'm giving it for demo purposes. For actual clients, I would give it a first name, a last name, possibly even a location if I wanted, but for sure a first name and a last name, and maybe the type of shoot, like a bridal or a model shoot or engagement, so that when I look back on my albums, I don't just have things like model in Salt Lake. It's a lot more specific. Of course, I can add keywords later, and I can either say select all, or I can go through and uncheck. Notice these big check marks. Everything is very straightforward. And then I hit add. And immediately, it starts importing. It's already 10 of 17. It's importing them. Here they are. They're all coming in. I can then hide this window and just then hit, next, 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 and start looking for some of my favorites. I can flag my favorites. And I can either flag here, or I can use the shortcut keys. So notice X is actually the letter X. So if I hit X, I'm rejecting it. And if I look at my keyboard, right next to X is Z. So and then if I hold this and hover, you'll notice it says flag as a pick. So if I like that image, I can go Z for pick, and I can just keep thumbing through with my arrows, and I go, that's pretty cute right there, Z for pick. And I can just go through, find my favorite right. Ooh, that's a pretty good smile, actually. Z. And keep going through. That one's really cute. I kind of like full length. I want to see your shoes. Z. Ooh, I like that even better right there. I get rid of that white space in the background. Good for me. I'm a genius. Anyway, a little turn. Ooh, I like that one right there. Z for pick. And I can do that for the whole rest of the shoot. And notice then I can go back to my grid modes. Either photo grid, which is pretty handy for this, a lot of verticals, or square grid. Gives me a little more space, but it makes every picture the same, right? Vertical or horizontal, they're all exactly the same. We're here and just taking out all of that gray space. I can also, right here, I got sliders. I can change the size of my thumbnails, and also just click up here for just search, and I can search for all sorts of things. Anyway, that is the new Lightroom. Oh, one last thing. The export. Let's say I like some images. I love this image right here, let's say, and I really like it, and I just want to send it to Facebook. Normally, I would have to save it as a JPEG or export into, say, Photoshop. Command E will open it in Photoshop. Maybe I want to size it down because I don't want to put a big photo on Facebook. Right? So they've kind of built in some connectivity. I can actually just click Facebook and it'll just send it right to Facebook. I don't have to worry about file names. I don't have to worry about where it's going to be saved to. It just sends it to Facebook. I can also get to the same dialog box by going File, Save to, Send to Facebook, or Edit in Photoshop. Same thing. One last thing, if I go Save to, I can change the file type, and I can also change the size. Again, very simple, either full, small, or custom, and also give me a specific spot. So everything's been simplified. That's the whole idea, is just to kind of reiterate, the whole idea of the new Lightroom is that everything is simplified. It's everything that you need and nothing that you don't. The whole idea is that eliminating anything that could be possibly even confusing, things like file, folder structure, file names, where are my files, things like that, modules, all of that's been eliminated, and some other things have been added. So things like cloud connectivity. So it's really hard to try to continually trying to add cloud connectivity to Lightroom Classic. There was some, obviously, but really it needed to be designed from the ground up to really do all the things that photographers are wanting to do now, which is to just have all of their images on all of their devices ready to go anywhere. So now, all of this, and I can click here, it shows my status, it shows how much I've used of my storage. If I need to upgrade my storage, it's syncing. And the whole idea is now when I do a photo shoot on my laptop, it shows up on my desktop. If I take pictures on my iPad or my iPhone, it shows up on my desktop on my, right, everything just syncs. All my images are just always there. They're always, I can just start working on them. I can continue working. I can jump to a different folder. I can jump to my sister's cute little family and try to find a really cute picture of all the cute little kids. I got a funny one of him somewhere in here just... Oh, there he is. That's what I was looking for. I remembered this shoot where he's just about had it, and that's the end of the shoot. So cute. But there's a cute one right there. Look at those cute little faces. Such cute little kids. Oh my goodness. Anyway, that's the whole idea, is I can jump from shoot to shoot, import. Everything's easy. Search is easy. Develop is easy. However, if you still like all the old controls, if you like having, say, more control over your file structure, your file names, things like that, then you may still want to continue using Lightroom Classic, which is now called Lightroom Classic. All right, you guys, if you have any more questions or if you want to learn even more, I've got full tutorials on Lightroom, on Photoshop, even on lighting, on getting expression, like cute little kids like this at a photo shoot, lighting everybody and not showing your light on the side. I've got courses on video production, even things on, I got like a 6-hour course on just sales. Everything's at my website, which is my name, BryCox, BryCox Workshops.com. All right, you guys, until next time, America.